So what do you do when your first employee resigns and then runs off with the password to your business computer system containing all of the company's data and operations? And then you go ahead and sign a lease, a 10-year lease for your first business lease. And the bank turns around and says, sorry, but we can't fund you anymore. Well, I tell you what you do. You go ahead and create an incredibly successful business called the Little Green House, which is an innovative, multilingual childcare business for modern families and companies. Let me give some stats about this business. So turnover today approaching 9 million Swiss francs a year, over 150 employees, and have helped over 2,000 families since May 2012 when it was first founded, and operating today in 4 locations in Switzerland. My guest today is the CEO and founder of the Little Greenhouse, and she also was awarded in 2017 the Veuve Clicquot Swiss Businesswoman of the Year Award, and was also recognized by the Financial Times for the past 3 years in a row in the top 1,000 fastest growing companies in Switzerland. So again, I'm delighted to have as our next guest today the CEO and founder of the Little Greenhouse, Barbara Lax.
This is the Expat Business Hero podcast, and I'm your host, Alex Congdon.
Hey, Barbara, welcome to the show. Absolute pleasure to have you on.
Thanks, Alex.
Barbara, I was driving my daughter to school this morning and, she fancies herself as a little bit of an entrepreneur. She likes to sell her vintage clothes via Instagram and all of that. And she asked me a very good question about your business because I was trying to explain it to her. And she said, well, what's the difference between what Barbara's doing and a normal creche? And I said, okay, well, I'll ask her. So I'd love for you to explain, Barbara, the concept of the Little Greenhouse and why you think it's so innovative.
You know, when I started Little Greenhouse, it was really out of my own frustration because I couldn't find a place that was, inspiring for a working family where both parents are working and both want to have a career. Because what I was really looking for was this, very strong partnership between the educators and the parents, where you could really rely that everything you wanted for your child was provided while you were at work. And also, I didn't really get to know the people that were working there in a relaxed way. And I always felt a bit like a stranger at the place. So that was for me the starting point. And different elements in our concept that are very different, I would say, to other places. One of them is that we are multilingual, so we provide childcare in English, French, and German. And the concept is called immersion, so it means in each of the groups there is educators in each of the languages, so the children are really immersed into these languages. And that also, motivates them to also keep their mother tongue, if it's another mother tongue even. It's very interesting, and I found that in such an international environment like we live here, it would be a pity not to build on this very multilingual environment of the children that they actually already bring. And so that's one very important point. The other important point is everything about nature and health. So we have our own vegetable garden. The children, learn. They spend a lot of time in nature, so they can really discover at their own rhythm. And we have forest days. We do a lot about, we have a compost. We do work a lot in our vegetable garden. We work a lot on recycling and really making the children also responsible for the environment and create that strong link to nature and these roots that will then also help them to resource themselves when they get older. And then the other very important point is, we call it the mighty minds. It's all about neuropedagogics. It's everything that we today know that the children can actually learn with their brains, with the brain development. These are a lot of things that we didn't know maybe in the 60s or in the 70s when a lot of those pedagogic concepts have been developed. So, just to give you some ideas. And then, of course, on the parent side, there's a lot of flexibility and support for those working parents. And that also, I think, is something that is different.
Well, I mean, you mentioned to me before we did this interview that you've had nearly 2,000 families have come through your, you've got 4 different sites now offering your services. 2,000 families, that's incredible. And you talk about them as being modern families. So just explain again, I know you did it just briefly, but what is the modern family? I mean, that you define for your business?
For me, a modern family, I mean, of course, there's a lot of models for modern families. And in the end, I think it's when a family really allows itself to, live their ideals. And these can be very different, but they don't try to just live a social model that they think that's kind of the standard, but they actually really allow themselves to live their ideals. And for a lot of families, this means that they also allow themselves to combine having a family and a good family and a family that works well, and also developing and working on their career so that both men and women in the family can actually, be a very good parent and also be a very good, employee or entrepreneur or whatever, and develop their career throughout also the children. And that, of course, demands a lot of additional support. So they can obviously not do everything perfectly well in terms of, cooking and housekeeping and everything else. So they really need to focus on the essential. And that's obviously spending as much time with the children as possible whenever they can. And that's where we want to be their support.
Great. I think a lot of people listening will probably fit into that category, or at least think they do. So that'll be very curious to see what they think of your business. Now, you've had two large, you probably had more, but the two that stood out for me, large public recognitions of your business. And one was the FT Top 1,000 Fastest Growing Businesses in Switzerland, but also you won the Swiss Businesswoman of the Year award in 2017 from Veuve Clicquot, and two great recognitions for what you've done. So what have those meant for you and obviously your organization as you built the business?
Yeah, these were very important recognitions for us for a variety of reasons. The Veuve Clicquot prize for me was, of course, a very prestigious and wonderful award with a lot of amazing events around it and experiences. And
did you get champagne?
Lots.
Oh, good. That's the main thing.
And, it's also a nice story because I don't know if you know, but Madame Clicquot, she actually became a widow when she was 27 years old, and she had a daughter, like I also have a daughter. I'm not a widow, obviously. And so she she continued the business or the champagne business all by herself. And that's, a long time ago. So she was a very strong woman, and that she wasn't afraid of everything people might say. And I think that that's very encouraging to get such a prize in that memory. So I'm very proud of that personally. And, the Financial Times ranking, I mean, we are already now ranked third year in a row. We also got ranked again in 2019. We actually just today received the official, document. And that's really for me also very important because a lot of people think that the social area, like childcare, like the care for old people, hospitals, things like that, are not really businesses, and they don't classify, and you cannot talk about this like a business. And I think you do, because you also need processes, you need controls, things need to be working well. You need to have a very high quality in order to attract also people that want to invest in you longer term. And so I'm coming from the business side, and I'm running this daycare like a business, and I'm very proud that we are receiving those business rewards.
Fantastic. Well, it's great. It's a great recognition of what you do. And I'm sure it makes it also helps you in hiring great people as well, because obviously they see the business being recognized and they want to be part of that. So that I'm sure that really helps.
Yes, definitely. That helps. And we are, this is actually one point that I have been putting a lot of focus since the first opening 2012, on developing a team of people that are highly motivated, that bring a lot of enthusiasm and also a lot of knowledge, and that stay with us, and then that can really create this very strong spirit that makes the difference at Little Green House. So yes, definitely it helps that we have this brand and this recognition.
Fantastic. Okay, so let's go back a bit then. And you touched on a little bit before, but you're from Bavaria, Germany, and here you are now in Switzerland, in the Geneva area. So how and why did you start this business? And what was your vision when you wanted to get this started?
It was a development, I think, of a lot of different things. Actually, I'm coming from the engineering side. I'm an engineer. I've been working in the construction and business, in the machinery business for a total of around 15 years. And there was one very big motivation for me and one very big frustration at the same time. And that was to not always see the result of your own efforts when you work in a big corporation or you work in research. You do a lot of things and you get very excited about a topic, and then you're not the one who will do the final decision if things are done and how they are done. So I've been working in strategy for many years, and I'm familiar with doing market studies, competitive analysis, things like that, but also develop new markets. And so there was always this kind of nagging voice in my head to say, okay, you need to do something more tangible and something more useful to society in a way, at least that you can see the use directly. So that really was something that developed in my head over the years. And, this idea about creating Little Greenhouse came during a barbecue with some friends where we were doing a brainstorming and where we were like, what would we do tomorrow if we would start our own company? And actually my first idea wasn't even to open a childcare center. It was to open a Bavarian beer garden because, I'm Bavarian, and so I think that's really needed. So maybe that's something I need to work on at some point. But then my friend said, yeah, but this is maybe not the right moment because you just have a little baby. And so you will not be able to work nights and, then come home and take care of the child. So I said, okay, you know what? I mean, this is really another topic that really bothers me. We need to have an innovative childcare. And so this is something I could do as well. And that got a lot of applause. Everybody came up with a story of somebody they knew that couldn't find the right place or couldn't find a place at all. And that then eventually had to really make changes to their lives, like moving away or, stopping to work, things like that. And so, that suddenly there was the spark, and then I couldn't get rid anymore of this idea. And so I started this project, in my free time. But while I was still working, I was working, 100% at the time. So it was really stressful, but it was really emotional. And I was spending 2 years to develop the whole project until I then actually quit my job.
That must take quite some motivation. How do you keep going? Because you're doing that 100% career as well as having a young child and doing everything else aside. That means evenings and weekends, I suppose.
Yes, and nights and mornings. And, I was traveling a lot. So, I had time in the hotel rooms, on the flights and things like that. It was really strong, this feeling. It's like when you fall in love, I couldn't stop thinking about it anymore. So it was always in my head. I was so excited. It was very tiring also because there was all these feelings, it was very emotional. And so I couldn't stop thinking about it. And it was kind of natural. But then, of course, when I started to work with people, then I had to start meet real estate agents and I had to meet architects and so on, banks, that was really the most stressful part because first of all, I needed to make time for that. So that was very difficult. And then I needed to pretend that I'm this, completely confident entrepreneur that knows exactly what she's doing. I mean, this was just an idea in my head. And so, of course, I then started to do market research and so on. But nevertheless, I felt like I live a parallel life, like I'm living in these two different worlds. And I felt like I'm playing theater. I met these people. And I did, I was preparing myself mentally in the car to drive to these meetings. I'm like, okay, now you have to jump into this role of this entrepreneur who knows exactly what she's doing and she will figure it all out, and you need to have an answer to all their questions. And that was unbelievably tiring, but it was actually, most of the time, it wasn't fun because you felt exhausted and it wasn't very authentic. But I think that that's sometimes also what it takes when you start something completely new.
Absolutely. It sounds like there was a lot at stake for you in doing this business for you personally. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
On the one hand, there was this, as I said, this very strong feeling, emotions and so on. So I knew I would regret more if I don't try this than if I maybe failed. So I had this very clear. I imagined myself, dying and thinking, oh my God, why did I never do this? Or thinking, yeah, okay, I did it, but it didn't work out. So, and I felt very strongly that I needed to do it because I would really regret it, until the rest of my life, because this for me was like this one moment, this one possibility to jump off the train and to start this very big thing, maybe, or maybe not, but then at least I had tried. So I was putting a lot of energy to that. But at some point, it wasn't only the energy that was needed, but I also needed to take some very bold decisions. So I needed to sign a lease for 10 years for a rental contract with a real estate agency. And I did it. And believing that I had figured out the financing just because I had an oral agreement from a bank. But just some days later, actually, that same bank came back to me and said, sorry, in the end, we can't give you the loan because, it's too risky. And I really like your project, but my boss doesn't. And so sorry. And so there I was, having signed this 10-year lease, and I didn't really know, how to move on. So I was really lucky. I found another bank that agreed to give me a loan, but I had to sign a guarantee that put our house, as a guarantee. And so that's big, and I also have to say that my close environment, like my parents and my husband, they were not really convinced about this whole thing that I wanted to start, because they're like, yeah, you're an engineer. I mean, this is what you know to do. You have a very good job. You have a good salary. You like your colleagues. Hello.
They must have thought you were crazy. They
did. They did. And they told me. And so I didn't tell them that I was actually signing all these documents, putting our house at stake and stuff like that. I mean, I did all this not telling anybody. And then, of course, worse things comes to worse. At some point, the business really went really bad. In the beginning, I was having all this great feedback, and we started off, but there were a lot of difficulties in the beginning. And at some point, we didn't develop like I planned, and we were really running out of money at some point. And that really, for me, was a complete nightmare, because, I felt like I betrayed everybody, and I really felt a lot of shame and desperation, because I felt like now if everything goes down, then I'm not only going to lose our house, and not only all these people will lose their jobs and all these family will lose their places, but, I might also lose my family because they will be so disappointed. I will maybe also lose all my friends because maybe they only like me when I'm strong and dynamic. So, there was this whole cinema going on in my head. And, when you don't sleep anymore and you have these nights without sleep, then of course you imagine so many things that a rational person would think that that's ridiculous. But then you get really deep into these kind of thoughts.
One thing that I think that you mentioned to me before was in some of the difficulties you had a number of them. You said, I think it was right at the beginning, that I think you had your first hire. I think it was you struggled there, didn't you? You had some issues with data or computers. Can you tell us a little bit about that, and perhaps anything else that really, any other big challenges you had to go through?
Yeah, I mean, of course, I was still working 100%, as I said, and so I knew that I couldn't take all of this on. And plus, of course, you need to have a trained professional pedagogue in order to take care of this whole team. So I hired a director for this childcare center. And, she was a very enthusiastic and motivated young woman. Didn't bring a huge amount of experience, but a lot of enthusiasm. So I let her work it all out in terms of the details on the pedagogics, and then also managing this first team of 15 people. Of course, on my side, I had to do all the administrative side, and I had to run the business. And that's also something that I needed to learn, and I had no clue about, because I knew how to do a big strategy, but I didn't know anything about, payment sheets and insurances and stuff like that. And so I think for her that was very scary and destabilizing. And her dad, is an accountant, so she wanted her dad to take over the company basically, and me just providing the funds, which obviously wasn't my idea. And I was ready to learn everything I had to learn. So we had this big discussion, and I said, look, I don't see this. I mean, I love working with you, but I don't want to work with your dad. And long story short, but the next day she was basically on sick leave and didn't come back anymore. And the problem was that I also didn't have the password to the computer where all our data was, all data, the employee data, all the schedules, the planning, the concept. So I couldn't do anything. So I was really afraid also that at some point she maybe somehow comes back and maybe deletes all the data, so I was super scared. So I called my brother-in-law, who is an IT specialist, and he flew in from Barcelona, and we did this, I know you call this a cloak and dagger operation. And he basically he pirated my computer. So I was pirating my own computer. I felt like a criminal in a way. And then this director, she never came back. And the moment then in the end, when she sent her resignation and the password finally, after months to the computer, the computer was empty by then. So I was doing a good job listening to my gut feelings.
I'm sure a few lessons learned there.
Yeah, a lot. I mean, I think sometimes there's so many things that you live and you learn. Today we have 150 employees and we have, around 700 families at the moment. So there's always something going on. So it's very exciting, but it's also, of course, you always need to decide quickly and awake.
So let's talk about that point there, 150 employees. Let's talk about the scale that you've created now in the business. So how have you managed to set up your operation so that it can grow now without killing you? Because obviously you can't do everything, but having a scale-up operation like that is quite something.
Yeah, so that's true. I mean, that was also the most difficult thing for me to learn, in the beginning. I mean, I had to learn how to run this team by myself, because when the director was gone, it wasn't like I had a new director the next day. So I needed to quit my job and learn how to run the team. And of course, being an entrepreneur, I thought, well, you just give people a good idea and a nice vision, and then things will just fall into the right place automatically. And that wasn't the case, because, people need a lot of security, people need processes, people need to know that everything's under control. And, that's obviously not something that I was able to provide to them in the beginning, because I didn't know how to do it. I had to learn that myself. And then very soon I realized that there were some people in the team that were really ready to take on responsibilities, and that were very motivated to take some weight off the shoulders, so that things continued to work well and that we could actually grow. And so those people then got more and more responsibility, and we got also more and more of those kind of people. And together we then built up this whole grid, this whole concept, this whole project, where we now even, we have 2 general managers who are managing the site managers and all the operations. And we have 1 quality and process manager who's also doing all the training for our new staff, and who makes sure that everybody knows to the last bit of detail how we want to work at Little Green House. So we don't have these discussions anymore and these struggles about, there's 2 people disagreeing on how you should talk to a child or work on a certain situation, or feedback to the parents, things like that. So there is a lot of detail that's needed. And I'm very happy, because today I'm not a lot involved anymore in the operational, nearly nothing. It's really run by those people that took on more and more responsibilities. And so I can think more and work more on the strategy and on the growth and on the brand. So that's a lot of fun for me, obviously.
Fantastic. That's great. Talking about help, did you get any help on this journey?
Yes, luckily I got a lot of help, and I took all the help that I could get from the beginning, and I think that was a very good thing. One of the organizations that helped me a lot is Jenny-Lem. It's an organization that helps startups that have an innovative idea in Switzerland. So you have 3 years free coaching, where people, there's somebody that sees you regularly and helps with all kinds of different questions. And there's also a great network of other companies that you can tap into, plus a lot of exposure to the press, that also helped us a lot, because we got a lot of visibility, and it helped to create also our brand. The other help that I got was from a personal coach at that moment where I was really down and I didn't know how to continue anymore. And she helped me to really focus on what is going well. And, even there in the beginning, I thought, oh, well, there's actually nothing going well, but you will always find something, even if it's not related to your business, even if you're in the worst moment, and you will always find something that actually went well in the day or in the week, and to focus on those things, and then more of that. And that also really helped me to get out of that very big crisis situation. So those were I think, the two biggest supports. And then, of course, the support from the team itself, from some of those people in the team that really were ready to take on responsibilities, even though they might not be able to influence all the different aspects, but they were ready to find solutions. And that really helped me.
Fantastic. So what about learnings that you could share that perhaps could be relevant for other people in startup mode today? What have you learned that really would be worth sharing?
For me, I think the biggest learning was that, I needed to learn that because I'm somebody I have a lot of endurance. I'm very focused. I'm quite a strong person, I would say. I did Ironman, when I was younger. I did a lot of endurance sports and, also during all the engineering career, you sometimes really need to hang there and be very focused. So my idea was, I'll manage this because I'm a hard worker. I can stay very focused. And if things don't work out, I just work harder and then it will work. And that I had to find out the hard way that that's actually wrong. It's sometimes less is more. And that when you are really not in a good moment or when things are really not going well, the solution is not to work harder and to work more. The solution is to, at least as an entrepreneur or as a leader where people are depending on you and your decisions, the solution is actually to take care of yourself and to make sure that you are in a good emotional state and in a good place so that you can take the right decisions. And sometimes, and many times, that means actually to work less and to take better care of yourself, of your sleep, of your body, of your health, of your mind, of your family, going on vacation, things like that. So, and I'm telling this my team also today. So I'm encouraging them to allow themselves to take the time they need, especially the leadership team. And I'm also allowing that to myself. I like to travel, so I'm often gone and I might work also from other places, or I take time off because I know that, when you are in stressful situations, you don't do any favor to anybody to work day and night. It's actually doing a lot of harm because you then are exhausted and you will not give the energy to the people that they need.
That's it. I mean, it's a great lesson, and it perhaps goes against what a lot of people perceive as being the way of doing business as an entrepreneur, and that is long nights. I mean, of course, it's hard work. We all understand that, but you're right. Self-care is key. Otherwise, you don't make it.
Yes, and exactly. The hard work you can do when you're feeling great, when things are going smooth, then you can put some extra hours in if you want, if you're fine. But as soon as there's a crisis situation, I mean, don't believe hard work will get you out of it. At least that was for my specific case. That was really a lesson I had to learn.
So tell us about the future for the Little Greenhouse and for yourself. What are you planning? What do you think that you want to bring into the vision now?
Yes. So, I want Little Greenhouse really to be an independent organization. I don't want us to be part of one of these big groups that are just growing and looking at market share. I'm passionate about innovation. I'm passionate about sustainable development, about social responsibility. I want to create this very inclusive, innovative place for the modern family and for the future citizen, so that they can really, put their focus on what's best for them, and that we can give them a good roots and good wings so that they can develop the best way. So that means for me that, of course, I would like to grow because I think we have a very good concept. It has a lot of potential. We have a lot of ideas. We're adding different services on a daily basis, more or less. Sometimes people around me get a bit tired with all the new ideas that are coming in. We just have created also a club for our families where parents can come to even parents that are not part of the Little Greenhouse can come on the weekends, have a coffee with us, come to conferences about all kinds of, work-life balance, education, things like that. They can celebrate their birthdays at our place. And we do a lot of events also, around sports, around just hanging out. And we create this really nice community. And I think there's more and more services that our modern family needs. There's how to continue the language skills of the children once they leave the Little Greenhouse, or maybe concierge services for the modern family. So maybe they don't have to worry about cooking healthy food anymore when they get home in the evenings. Co-working, we're partnering with co-working spaces, and we're doing a lot of things around providing these extra services. And then, of course, developing further and further our pedagogic project around these neuroscientific learnings, because there's a lot of new results on a daily basis. And it's very interesting. And I think that's very exciting. And for me, it's important that we keep our independence and that we grow at a moderate space, that we can do openings, maybe 2 childcare centers per year, something like that. I think on the long run, that will be no problem. But I don't see us to kind of just, spread and just think about growth. It still needs to be fun, and it still each time needs to be something new.
Fantastic. That's a really exciting vision. And I think that, the way you're looking at the modern family and what they need, it's a lot more than just, in quotes, childcare. It's a much broader vision, and it's fantastic, really, really exciting. So I want to finish off by a question which I ask all my guests, and it's around, the idea of you mentoring other people or giving back. And I know you give a lot already today, but if you chose to mentor or help someone, who would it be and why?
Well, this one phase in my entrepreneurship journey that really marked me the most was actually this very deep crisis that I went into, because I was taking so much risk and I was going against all odds, and I had to kind of, survive this moment and come out of this stronger. And that's nicely said, but it's not so easy to be done. And I think today I could be a good resource for people that are actually in this very stuck state, and that they feel there is no solution to their problem, and that they just took too much risk, and that they just don't have the support they need. I think I could share with them a lot of the things that I did and that helped me during that moment. And so I think that those are the people I could help, I could mentor.
Fantastic. Okay, so I'm going to call it an end of our wonderful conversation, and thank you again. Thank you for everything that you do and all the families that you help and all the employees that you take care of and provide this fantastic opportunity. If anyone wants to find out more about you, I'm going to put your website up on the show notes. It's littlegreenhouse.ch. And of course, people can also reach out to you personally via LinkedIn if they want to do that. But that's the main website. And once again, Barbara, I really want to thank you very much, and I wish you all the best for the future.
Thanks, Alex. It was a great pleasure to chat with you, and also all the best for your great show. Thanks.
Thanks a lot.